often have you and I been in a conversation? Somebody's asked for feedback on a project, on a paper, a presentation, and you've had reservations, but you didn't think you could pull those reservations out and actually share them, and you have withheld the last 10% that may be actually the difference between my success and my failure. Now, let me share with you my life coach. And this Saturday, we will be celebrating 44 years of coaching me, all right? She is my fiercest critic, my most loyal friend, and she has become a sharer of the last 10%. We were driving in the car not too long ago on the way to one of my grandson's basketball games when she leaned over to me in the car and she said, "Could I give you some feedback?" I said, "Sure." She hesitated and she says, "Well, I'm a little concerned." I said, "You're kidding." I said, "Please, it's safe." She hesitated again and then she said, "Are you aware of how you are interacting with the basketball officials at your grandson's games?" I said, "Me?" She said, "Yes, you." I said, "I've made a couple of comments." She said, "No, you've made more than a couple of comments." I continued to drive down the road not saying anything, and after about 5 minutes, she leaned in toward me and she said, "Have we gone to silence?" Dangerous to present this material to people, isn't it? I said, "Yes, as a matter of fact, I have," but I said, "The reason that I have is this is pretty challenging." I said, "By the way, who said something to you?" She said, "Your daughter." I said, "How long ago?" She said, 2 weeks ago. I said, "You've got to be kidding me." And as we continued to talk, this is the last 10% that she shared. She said, "Are you wanting your grandchildren to cringe when they see you walk into the gymnasium?" And that had a profound effect on me, and here's why it had the profound effect. This is one of the teams that I coached, and the gentleman in the far right-hand side that actually has hair, okay, is me a few years ago. And one of the things that I had a chance to do in my doctoral dissertation is study sport and moral reasoning. And everyone who played on our team had to take a 2-hour class from me, and we had a sports person's code that made it clear that you could not speak to an official during the game. It was a code of mutual respect. And what had I started to violate? The very thing that I stood for, and she was able to share that information, and as Albert Bandura so artfully says, it's not that I was amoral, but I was in moral slumber. And when she shared the feedback with me, it brought me out of my moral slumber. Now, this was 6 games before the end of the season. And I got to tell you, I have done really well except for one game. And I actually caught myself in the midst of this and pulled myself back. In fact, the very last game of the season, it was a home game, pretty hotly contested, and at one point an official made a call and 2 parents immediately sprung to their feet, one from the opposing team, one from our home team, and one of them actually stepped out on the court. At the first timeout, the athletic director came over, and I could see that they were having a discussion. I was sitting in the other stands. And he escorted them both out of the gymnasium. And I turned to my wife and I said, "Friends, I haven't even been tempted." Why? Because she was able to share the last 10%. And she was able to anchor it to something that I deeply held and I deeply believed in. This is the interesting thing. It's a paradox of life that the less we look at our shortcomings, the more others do. Henry Cloud. Now, here's my admonition. There is a need to learn from Olympic athletes because Olympic athletes are proactive. They go out and ask. They don't wait until somebody gives. And when they get that information, they actually use it. So my challenge to you right now is have you been withholding the last 10%? Are you withholding that person's future? How could you make it so safe to create mutual purpose and to thread mutual respect, that rebar, into the environment in which you share this information that can have a profound impact upon their life? So my challenge to you is, within the next week and a half, I want you to hold yourself accountable to start looking at, who do I need to share some feedback with? But this is the most important one. I want you to go out and seek it from somebody else. Think about becoming vulnerable enough to walk up to your boss and say, "What's it like being on the other end of me?" Or to your spouse, like I did the other day to my wife, Sandra. I said, "What's it like living with me?" And she said, "How long do you have?" Just kidding. Who do you need to talk with? Because at the end of the day, this is about having authentic relationships. And when you and I are not talking about the real thing, when you and I are not sharing the last 10%, we're not having authentic relationships. We're not having live encounters. And you're not moving towards your peak. Seek, get, and use feedback, and you will find yourself moving across the finish line as an authentic person with authentic relationships and authentic results. Thank you very much.